Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Ann, and my thanks to all of the sponsors and co-sponsors of this event. I am really impressed. This is an extraordinary turnout, and I really couldn't be more pleased to be here. I will admit that when I shared with my colleagues that I was going off to Buffalo in early April, there were the usual jokes about bring your winter coat, boots, etc., as if we in Connecticut were strangers to snow in the middle of April. But the weather is great, and I've just had a spectacular stay. I'm also, the timing could not be better, and as Ann mentioned, the application that we received for technical assistance from Help Me Grow from a number of collaborators on behalf of Erie and Niagara counties was just superb. And our review committee, which is a national review committee, I shouldn't say this so publicly, particularly since it will be on the web, but indeed ranked the application as the very best that it had received. And we look forward to partnering with you in sharing what we've learned in Connecticut to enable this program to move forward in the Buffalo region. And third, I must admit I was both excited and challenged by the topic at hand. To speak about the issues inherent within early childhood mental health services and support is a daunting task. And for me, I literally asked myself the question, where do I begin? Because I look at this issue from at least three different perspectives. I have been a general pediatrician. I've provided primary care to children and families over a number of years. And certainly issues with regard to early childhood mental health services and support predominated within my practice. Secondly, I am a board-certified developmental and behavioral pediatrician, have offered subspecialty and consultation services, and obviously a very strong interface with childhood mental health services. And now I am admittedly primarily an administrator at a children's hospital and in a department of pediatrics of a medical school, and so many critical issues arise that relate to childhood mental health services. So in attempting to think about where to begin, I contemplated a host of problems based on my multiple perspectives. Clearly, within the primary care setting, there is inadequate recognition of young children with behavioral and developmental concerns, and not surprisingly, parental dissatisfaction as a result of our inability to identify children at a young age. Secondly, we're all aware of the extent to which there is inadequate capacity, inadequate program capacity and services for children with behavioral and developmental problems. And as a result, there are extraordinarily prolonged waiting times for referrals. I am embarrassed to share with you the waiting time for the assessment of a child for whom concerns with respect to autism arise in the state of Connecticut. It is unacceptable. It ranges from 6 months to 2 years. A 2-year wait when a child is suspected of manifesting signs or symptoms of autism, unacceptable. And also, we have had this extraordinary problem with children in mental health crisis being stockpiled in our emergency departments of all venues because they require inpatient services and there's no place for them to go because all beds are filled, because children occupying acute psychiatric beds cannot be discharged to residential or lower intensity services. As an administrator, I am all too well aware of the inadequate support for child health providers' management of children with developmental disorders within our practice settings. The complexities of psychopharmacological management exceed the comfort and capabilities of most child health providers, even those of us with specialized training, and limited access to mental health consultation, particularly real-time consultation, when acute issues arise, only exacerbate the problem. So, where do we begin in defining the problem? Well, there have been a number of proposed solutions, targeted solutions to the very problems that I've raised. So, for example, the American Academy of Pediatrics has issued a policy statement in July of 2006 on early detection, specifically developmental surveillance and screening, that serves as a very appropriate, effective guide for child health providers and should, if followed, enhance our ability to perform early detection, and particularly early detection of children at risk for adverse developmental and behavioral outcomes. Within Connecticut, recognizing the limited capacity of our mental health sector, our former Governor John Rowland initiated a program called Connecticut Community Kid Care that was focused on increasing community capacity and to some degree has in fact increased referral capacity and shortened waiting times. To attempt to solve our emergency department problem, at times we have had 17 to 18 children in mental health crisis stockpiled in our emergency department, an emergency department with 25 medical surgical beds. You can imagine the chaos. So we've worked with our psychiatric partners at the Institute of Living to develop a multi-site program called CARES, Child and Adolescent Rapid Evaluation and Stabilization Program, that enables us to move patients from the ED setting to this unit for further assessment and ultimately triage to the appropriate intervention, whether it's community-based or hospital-based. In our neighboring Massachusetts, there is a very successful telephone support program whereby child psychiatrists provide real-time telephone consultation to pediatricians, particularly to be helpful with issues of psychopharmacological support. And then finally, we in Connecticut have begun a program in which we place mental health clinicians, co-locate them within primary care practices and clinics in order to try to provide brief, solution-oriented, family-focused treatment when behavioral concerns arise within the primary care setting, and attempt to prevent these problems from escalating into those that ultimately overwhelm the mental health system, the educational system, and ultimately, unfortunately, the juvenile justice system. So there are targeted solutions to the myriad of problems that constitute a crisis in mental health service delivery. These targeted solutions must be part of a broader system solution. And Charlie, who is the expert in systems of care, will speak to system development. But what I'd like to do with you, coming from my child health provider perspective, is take a step back and suggest that we have the opportunity to help solve this crisis by identifying children early when we know that they are at risk for adverse outcomes, when we know that services can be brought to bear that are more easily accessible, that are less intensive, that are less extensive, and yet can prevent behavioral concerns from escalating into subthreshold and beyond psychiatric diagnoses.